For the people who don't know me, I'm Gordana Collier. I'm head of School of Engineering, Computing and Mathematics here at Brookes. And I'm really happy to be introducing tonight the two speakers who are present and past Brookes staff. Well, from my perspective, they actually seized the opportunity, admittedly, in last century. Think about that. They looked at what is going on in this geographic area and in the whole of industry, motorsport industry, and created not a mechanical engineering program, not an automotive program, but motorsport program. And that was very, very novel at the time. So I'm really looking forward to their talk, same as hopefully you are, because they did something really novel, and they will take us hopefully to back to those days and tell us how it all happened. I wasn't around, so every time I get little snippets of it, I'm really, really excited. So that said, I don't want to steal their thunder, but I think it will be fair to say they created a very unique ecosystem here at Brookes. The word pillar is very popular in education, so I'll use it. Really, we have these three pillars. We have these premium courses that we teach. We have research, which is underpinning that teaching, and we also have premium extracurricular project, and I'm pleased to see that some members of the team are here with us tonight. What else did I want to tell you? I have to say, I'm really humbled to be following their achievement and continuing to build on the success that my colleagues had over the years. There are a lot of staff here. We all share their vision. We are all together on this path, and we are all contributing to this ecosystem, the success we're having today. So we managed to create really good programs and research. And finally, I scrubbed this word off, but I can't resist. Finally, we have the environment to match that, the laboratories and buildings to match the work we do, to really underpin what we do. So I really, really hope that you will have the time to cross the road with us after we finish the talk and have a look at our facilities. We are really, really proud of them. But before we do that, I would just say, I'm really delighted that Denise is here and James to tell us how it all began.
Okay.
Fantastic. Thank you, Gordana. It's a lovely introduction. Yeah. So you will have worked out that I'm Denise and
I'm James.
Yes, James.
That's how lectures are meant to begin.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely, which is really good. And we're going to do this a little bit as a double act. Some of you will be really disappointed, particularly my colleagues in the middle there, because there won't be any equations tonight. Oh shucks! Probably quite pleased, really. Okay, so we're going to tell you a story, and we think it's an interesting story for all sorts of reasons. It felt, as I was preparing these slides, it felt a little bit like having your life pass, jumping off a building and having your life kind of pass. But it's been really, really fascinating to reflect on all of this. So I'm hoping I can get the slides to move forward. So I'm afraid I'm going to take you back to a fantastic time when James's favorite song, Hotel California, was on. It was pretty bleak, 3-day week, winter of discontent. And I left school and I went I got sponsored. I was the first female engineering sponsored student with British Rail, and I ended up in Crew Works, which is the biggest locomotive works in England. And I just loved this slide here, because almost every day when I would go into work, there were 3,000 men on the shop floor and me. I'd go into work and I would see these 80-ton locomotives being lifted off the floor. There were pistons that were this sort of size, brake blocks that I could only just lift. It was fantastic. I loved it. I learned so much about real engineering. After that, just so in case people want, you know, because it's a long time ago for some people I know, but Margaret Thatcher, Prime Minister, you've at least heard of anyhow, yeah, Margaret Thatcher. So I went and I studied engineering at Cambridge University, which was really theoretical. And I really struggled with the course there because it didn't relate to the real engineering that I'd done, Crew Works, all of these sorts of things. The one kind of, when I was at Cambridge, there were 315 of us and there were 15 women on that course. You know, times have changed enormously. The one highlight on the course for me was that I was still working for British Rail, and I went and worked in the design office in Derby, and there were 500 of us in the design office, all on drawing boards, and I had the one computer in the whole design office. British Rail had written a finite element code, and I used it. This was actually a very successful van, and I used it to apply some shunting loads. I had to mostly put it in as paper card. So overnight, the program would run, and I redesigned the back end of this VGA van. I then, when I left Cambridge, I worked on what was a teaching company scheme. They're now called Knowledge Transfer Partnerships, with a small company in Aylesbury. And we bought for £1,700. This was just about the first personal computer that there was. And we taught the staff Word and spreadsheets and databases. And it blew their minds. It was amazing. They'd never seen a computer before. I mean, the only computers we had were, you know, these kind of punch card sorts of things. Yeah. But for me, this was all real stuff. And I'm telling you this because this is at the back of my mind all the time. I want a program that is real, and does real engineering and all of these kind of things. 1984, you won't recognize me in that photograph there. I came here, and I was the first female member of staff that was appointed. One or two of you in the audience were here in 1984. Staff-student ratio 11:1, and there was one person doing research at Brookes, Alec Beavers. My good friend Alan Hutchinson joined a little bit after that. So I had a passion for teaching, and I was really interested in research at the time. And when, having joined, I then won quite a bit of research funding. I got funding for 2 PhD students and a teaching company scheme. And I set up, even at this time, I set up a new automotive lab that was predicting and measuring mode shapes inside cars. So it's automotive NVH, that sort of thing. And by 1990, I was appointed as head of department. I think it was because nobody else wanted the job. I'm pretty sure that was why it was. No. Exactly. But one of the things that we tried out quite a bit was the idea of problem-based learning. I was desperate to find something that would relate what we were teaching to the real world. And James and I both did this educational methods, the EMU course, and we were both fascinated by this idea of teaching things differently. We really wanted to do that. Now, life gets even more interesting because in 1991, we appointed James as a lecturer. Do you want to say a little bit about yourself? Because I'm witted on that.
Yes, I was appointed in 1991. Denise actually interviewed me.
Okay.
It must have gone okay because she gave me the job pretty much straight away, and it was great. I came from a background was slightly different to Denise's. I came from a background. I had done mechanical engineering, but I then went to work for a superconducting magnet manufacturer, and I worked for a laser company, and I had a lot of experience in those sorts of industries and in developing products. And I had realized at that time that I had a bit of a passion for teaching, and I decided that I would take a change of career and I would leave the private sector and join the university.
Great. But this was a time of great change as well, because in 1992, what was Oxford Polytechnic, that great institution that all you nice people came to, was going to become a university. So this was a really difficult time for the university to work out its identity, what it was doing, and all of these sorts of things. But along the way, again, James and I were thinking and worrying about recruitment, as you do, student recruitment, that is, for anybody who's, and so we actually started a course in technology management because we thought we could get people who are interested in business, interested in technology, and actually the course did recruit well, didn't it?
It did.
It did. It was quite good. But let's fast forward.
Oh yeah, left-handed.
Left-handed. Yes.
So we're in a meeting.
So James, remember I'm head of department now. Just for a moment. So James, I wanted you to have a look at some of these recruitment statistics and tell me some of what's going on. Where have we got to?
Well, you asked me to have a look at this as somebody recently appointed from outside with perhaps a slightly different perspective on how things are going to go within the university, and I've done that, and it's not good. So we have applicants. We currently have applicants, perhaps 110 applicants. They want to do mechanical engineering predominantly. They have B's and C's. They're not doing badly at not doing badly in academically, but they don't come. Okay. They almost all go somewhere else. And I have been wondering why they would come here. Why would you come here? You think about, why did we choose our universities? So I went to Birmingham, and it's a pretty good university. You went to Cambridge. Passable university, pretty good. Why did we choose those courses? So you think about students coming to Brookes, and you and I going to Birmingham and Cambridge, and why did we choose? Well, we chose them because of reputations. So Birmingham and Cambridge have fantastic reputations, and we went there for that reason. And what did we find when we got there? Well, you and I have had a number of discussions about this, but actually it wasn't all great. When I did my first year, we had a practical session, which was quite nice. We were all looking forward to that. I was made to file a pair of pliers out of a piece of steel that was 1/4 of an inch thick. That was my EA1 experience as it was at the time. Now, I haven't kept up with most of that cohort, but I can pretty confidently say none of us have made a living by filing pliers. So, why? And it's such a missed opportunity. Why do that? Why take people who want to do something as brilliant and as creative as engineering and give them a diet like that? The ones that come out at the end of it, they probably win the prize for stamina, or that's it really. So why do that?
But James, what's really interesting is, and I've been going around doing these accreditation visits with the Institution of Mechanical Engineers, the IMechE, and I'm external examiner at a couple of places, and Oxford Polytechnic is different. there's something really different about this. The other polytechnics, they're often in this kind of industrial heartland, Birmingham, Leeds, Coventry, and all the local people go to that polytechnic. Whereas Oxford is different because it's Oxford, it's got Oxford in the name,
Oxford,
you know, but it doesn't help us in terms
No.
of, you know, what we're doing. But you know, the other interesting thing that I've been noticing as I've been going round and as external examiner, there's a number of places that are putting on BEng honours in automotive engineering. Yes. And you know, they don't do anything like what we're doing. The research that I've got going on in my lab, people like Tony Hearn in the engines and all of that sort of thing, these other people aren't doing that.
No. Well, we have, just before we finish, we need to talk a bit more about that. Because if our plan, we want to raise the game, and we want to, you and I don't want to run a degree that involves making pliers. No. So we're not going to compete with Birmingham and Cambridge. That's not going to, and if the plan is we're just going to become Cambridge overnight, it's not going to work. So we talked about this before, and what we need is something that we do that they don't. You need driven students who care about something. They're here, they want to get there, they come through an education process, they get there, and the ones over there tell the ones over there that you do this and you get there. That's what we need to make. And we need to make it out of what we've got and not try to be Birmingham. Now, automotive, that sounds really interesting.
Let me carry on. Here we go. So in life, you have those little light bulb moments. And something happened to us in 1995 after this conversation. There was a body called the Heart of England Tech. It was one of those kind of quangos. It was based in Abingdon. I think Tech stood for Technology and Enterprise Centre or something like that. Council even. And they were doing a study into skills for the motorsport industry, because there was quite a bit of motorsport industry around here. And they came up with the result from this study, and it found some quite worrying things. One of the things was that most of the motorsport teams every week would get thousands of letters from people who said, I want to be a race engineer, I want to do this. And they'd got no experience at all of the industry. There was also a shortage of craft skills, and people in schools didn't understand motorsport as well. And the light bulb moment went like this. The Heart of England Tech came to me and they said, we've had a conversation with Oxford University. And they said, I don't think we can help you with that one. And I said, come inside. We can do this. And we did. We worked with them really, really closely. Now, you might see on this map, there's a kind of map of the motorsport valley as it's now defined. And we're kind of in the middle of this, but there's lots of other universities who are in the middle of this. So I talked about putting on this BEng in automotive engineering, and we had to go through a validation process. And this was one of those big hurdles you have in life. It had to go to academic board here, and amazingly enough, a number of the people on academic board said, oh no, not something with, no, they petrol-driven cars, really bad for the environment. And they were ready to throw this course out. Very gratefully, somebody on academic board fought for this course and it got approval, because otherwise we wouldn't be standing here telling you all about this. But we put on the course and we had sponsorships, and we were really supported by Benetton. Pat Simmons was there, TWR and the Arrows, Reynard Racing, Adrian Reynard, and David Richards from ProDrive as well. And just to see this, this Motorsport Valley is really important. It's the GDP that it creates is 4 times the music industry. If you think that the music industry is significant, this is much bigger than that. And it's this kind of, I don't know, sociological knowledge exchange bubble where people move from team to team, and it generates the most amazing research and the most amazing engineering. So, you know, we yes, very fortunately, we were at the heart of that. But, you know, the conversation with the Heart of England Tech was just amazing in terms of this. And so, 1996, our first students were admitted onto our automotive engineering course. One of the things that was really important to us about this course was that we wanted it to be for really high caliber people. We did not want, there were, you know, motor mechanics courses, this was not about that. We talked so much with the industry about what they wanted, and we put on this, but we also put in, James referred to EA1, which is what the IMechE, the IEE as was, get us to do in the first year. I got students building Tiger racing kit cars, which was amazing. And we also recruited Dan Bell, and Dan unfortunately is not with us this evening. He's got his mum and dad aren't very well, but it was an amazing thing to have recruited Dan at that time. And here we go. We've got another one of those little meetings, James, coming along. Ooh.
Call to the boss's office.
Yep, call to the office. So, James, how have these meetings with sponsors been going then? Do you reckon?
Okay, so meetings with sponsors are really, really good. They want to help us. They will provide no money, but we're allowed to use pictures from Benetton Formula One team, and we can use those in our publicity material. The most important thing is we have sponsor places. Yeah. We have places. These students are going to now have design work set as part by the sponsoring companies. So if you get an applicant and they have been chosen for sponsorship, then they will be working with these companies as they go through the university, and it's absolutely fantastic. So guess what? Quite a few students want to apply for that. Mm-hmm. Now, from my point of view and from our point of view, the best thing about this is they're going to get jobs. There's no way that companies like Formula One teams and ProDrive and all the other companies that are doing this, they're going to take the students. That will happen for sure. So all we've got to do now is to get this virtuous circle going, and it will be like an engine itself that's got a turbocharger on it. If good students come and they get the diet that is what the industry wants, and then they get the jobs, people will see that, and it will be special and it will be different. Adrian Reynard told me that he gets 1,000 unsolicited applicants for jobs every year. He was a student here. Guess how many he takes? About 3 from the 7 that are good. And the things that he says, it's exactly the same. Pat Simmons at Benetton says, you get hundreds of applications, but it's not enough. They don't know about cars. They didn't know about that. And it isn't any good being the mechanic-y thing. No, 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 no. There's a place, of course, for all that. But the engineers have got to know their way around a car and understand what oversteer and understeer is in a numerical and computing kind of way, and the dynamics, and all of that, on top of which they need to know the vehicle dynamics and the and that's what we're going to do. That is where we're going to do, and we will be different. And nobody will be able to take this away from us. Once we have this going. In industry, it's called the barriers to entry. Nobody else will do it. So that's good. But there's something else I wanted to ask you about.
Oh, okay, okay.
Well, I have an idea.
Okay.
I want us to build a racing car.
But we've never built
No,
a racing car.
we have never done that. But there is a thing called Formula Student.
Oh,
You heard about it? No, okay.
yes,
So
yes, it's done, yeah.
basically, you take students it's new. It's new in this country. It has been going for America for a while, for some
Yeah.
time, but it's starting to open up in Europe. IMechE are getting interested in it, and I want us to do one. Now, you're right. I haven't ever designed a racing car, but, you know, I've done fairly well in project engineering before I joined, and I'm up for it. Don't worry about that. You're worrying too much. Instead, I mean, leave that to me. Instead, I want you to think about what that's going to mean. Imagine if we win. Imagine if we win. And I don't want us to just do Formula Student, because there are universities. So let me be clear. There are universities that say to the students, it's okay, you can take your car out the back and you can make it after exam. No. We're not going to do that. It is going to be part of everything that we do. And it is going to be endemic from the curriculum from the beginning. Okay. And they are going to do it all the way through, not some add-on that they're allowed to do.
And all
What
the
do you-
students?
I want it to be open. We've had plenty of discussions about this. You and I think that this education experience should be open to anyone. And I'm not for elitism. There are universities, and perhaps you're alluding to that there are universities that restrict it. So only 10 students from the final year can do it, and I'm not up for that. Now, it's a big ask, but basically, the first time out, it's going to be okay, because I'm going to go to the students and I'm going to say, by the way, everybody, does anybody fancy staying behind after exams with James for 8 weeks, and we're going to build a racing car? Now, what are they going to say? Okay, they're going to say yes, so we'll do it, and then it will get better. And if you talk to Pat Simmons, which I have about this, it's the same as any sport. In order to win, you don't win at the beginning. You just have to get better. So you get a process going. It's like the students coming in, that they drive up the standards because the incoming students are good quality and they do well and they go on and it makes them come more. It's the same with the racing team. You drive up the standards, you do the competition, you learn, you make it feed it back into what's coming in, and you make it better and better. And my best kept secret, which I want you to keep secret, certainly from the students, is it doesn't actually matter if they win or not, because it's the educational experience that's going to make. Imagine. Really matter. If you look, not every Formula One team can win. Not every Formula Student team can win. But we will. We will. You'll see.
We'll see.
No, we can
We'll
do
see.
this. We can do
We'll
this.
see. We can do this. We can do this. Fantastic. So we produced our first graduates in 1999. And this was our first entry into Formula Student. Might not be quite what you think, but what do you think, James?
Well, I think it's a pretty good car. It's made of wood, an underestimated material, I feel. We took the decision that year that we would not attempt to build a running racing car. The Formula Student competition is divided into two areas. There's a whole load of competitions within it. About 2/3 are running events where you have a real car, and 1/3 of them are design events. And we decided that we would do a design competition. And we would arrive with our mock-up of what it was going to be like, and we would take all our analysis, and we would have a look and see what the other cars are like, and we would learn, because we wanted to start a process of improvement and getting better. And this is a great way to start. That was the entire team.
And that's Dan Bell on the
that
left
is it.
there. If anybody can recognize Dan Bell on the left.
So
He looks
students,
a bit
yeah, I
big
mean, those of you who are students at the moment will find it hard to believe, but you know, that's the
Dan
final
Bell.
year at the time. That's it. So
Okay.
you start with not much, but you build up.
Absolutely. Now, 1999 was also an interesting year for some other reasons. I, as head of department, applied, I mean, it may not sound like very much at that time, but I applied for £40,000, and we were going to build an extension to our wavy roofed Darcy building, which is no longer there, and we were going to put our new auto lab in that that building. The Queen had something more important to do on this particular day, but Prince Philip was really keen on engineering, and he came to see us. And he was really lovely with the students. You can probably see it in the top image here in the background there. There are lots of these Tiger kit cars that I had the students building, which was pretty amazing. And in the bottom image was the Vice Chancellor at the time, who was so supportive of everything we did, almost everything, which was really nice. Having the strong support of the Vice Chancellor made an enormous difference to actually starting all of this up. I would just like to say one thing at this point. This auto lab meant that I lost my research lab. So to give up and for the greater good, I put my research career slightly, quite a lot on hold, sadly. But I mean, we believe that it was really
it was a good move.
Yeah, it was really important. I like this one. I think it's really good, and we used to run it as a caption competition. So you know, things like I'm afraid I don't think I can find that 5-penny piece, your Royal Highness, or if you put your left foot forward, and with the music, it will, you know, it's. We thought it was quite fun.
We should have put it on, you know, the news quiz thing, all that.
We should have done that, shouldn't we? Definitely, we really should. Yeah, we had a nice time. Okay, and this is when things really started to happen, because this was our first running entry into Formula Student. James.
Well, yes, our first running entry in Formula Student, year 2000. If you know a lot about racing car development, you tend to think about, with the dynamics, what incremental changes will we make to our Grand Prix car this year based on the previous year? Well, in the case of this car, it's pretty straightforward. It weighed 280 kilos. So never mind the analysis, just lose 100 kilos from it. And there was a lot wrong with this car, but it did race, and it was there, and it was all, actually, you know, we learned more about project management than we really did about racing car design, because I didn't tell Denise, because you're not really supposed to do this, but the exhaust manifold on that car was welded in the van on the way to the competition. So, and some of you are Formula Student team members. No. And, you know, well, what can I say? But actually, one thing that I do remember from that time was just how friendly and helpful everybody was, because we had one of those nail-biting moments when we'd lost one of the fittings for the brake system, and it was bleeding brake fluid, and we weren't going to pass the scrutineering, which means that you can't take the car out. And somebody from Texas, who was in the bay next to us, said, "Oh, you know, that's pretty bad." Well, hang on, he said, and he disappeared into this enormous truck thing that they had, and he came out and he said, "Is that it?" So I said, "No, it's not." And he disappeared in and got another. He said, "Yeah, -2, that was it." So we fitted it up. We had about 40 minutes left before we were going to get checked in, and we made it. It's amazing. Everybody, you know, when you're on the track, you compete quite hard, but actually when you're in the paddock, everybody's there together. It's really nice. And it's another little photograph there. I don't know that chap in the middle there. That's, will you believe it? That's James. Yeah, and others who. So I don't think Dan's in that photograph though. But there are. Well, there's a student in that group who went on to lift the Constructors' Championship trophy at the end of a Grand Prix. Yeah, David Greenwood. Yes, yeah, he did. Then, and we moved on, 2001. One of the things that we also had started, and it started a bit with the technology management, but we really developed this with the automotive and motorsport, was that we had a lot of students who were out on placements. 75% of our students were out on placements. And things were really motoring. This was a carbon monocoque this year. It was. Oh, and on the placements. Yeah, go on. There was I remember at that time because I used it. There were a lot of students in Formula One who were on placement. Half of them came from this department. Wow.
Yeah. So already we were punching above our weight. We went to Autosport this year as well, which is the first time we did that, which was a really exciting thing to do. But we had, again, another one of these kind of slightly light bulb moments. And I don't know, it probably wasn't either James or I who had answered the phone. It was probably one of the admin staff. And this phone call came through from David Sainsbury of Sainsbury's Supermarkets, who was then the Minister of Science and Innovation. And he phoned up and he said, I've heard about this exciting work that you're doing with the motorsport industry, and I want to come and visit. And James and I said, oh yeah, that'd be great. And he said 8 o'clock on Thursday morning. And we said, yeah, it'd be fantastic. We'll be there 8 o'clock on. Now, I said to you earlier on that the Vice Chancellor at the time, Graham Upton, was really supportive of almost everything we did. He was not pleased that I didn't mention to him that we had the Minister for Science and Innovation on the campus at that time. It was a rather difficult conversation. Having said that, it was an amazing meeting with David Sainsbury, and he was really interested. He was interested in the idea of clusters of companies who work together. And I met David Sainsbury probably 5 or 6 years ago at a fundraising event that was being run on behalf of my college in Cambridge. And David Sainsbury was in the house next door. And so I was introduced to him. I said, well, you've already met me. You came to Oxford Brookes when we were doing this work with the motorsport industry. And he said to me, that work with motorsport, that was an exceptional piece of work. I was sitting at a table with people who'd got CBEs, OBEs, and I thought, I'll take that one away. That's quite nice. I quite like that. He was a very nice, very gracious man. And he obviously really liked and he knew how important motorsport was to the UK. 2003.
Well, yes, 2003. For me, 2003 was a bit of a tipping point. And I think, and when we talked about it before, we have felt that it was something of a tipping point. There is inevitably, when you start a new initiative like this, there was some internal resistance. So Formula Students in its first outing was nicknamed Formula Stupid by some people. That hurts. Well, things change. Okay, things change. When you start to win, people think differently. And it was about this sort of time. The whole thing had a momentum all of its own. We were known in the industry. We had students who'd gone out to work in the industry who were doing really well. And it's a bit like, I mean, for those of you who are of a musical bent, there's a quote by George Schulte, the great conductor, and he was asked about how you get new works to be performed by the orchestra and how difficult it is. I don't know if any of you have ever tried conducting, but you're doing this with one hand and you're keeping the beat with the other, and there's a lot going on. He said, to begin with, they never do it right. You want this and you want that, but you don't get it. And you work with them, and in the end, oh yes, there comes a point when they do their magic, and this wonderful music comes out exactly as it's supposed to be. And all you have to do is sit there and keep the beat, because it's starting to do it all by itself. And this was amazing. By this time, it really was like that. Where do you go to do motorsport? Oh, you go to Brookes. People would write to Formula One teams, aged 11. I want to get into motorsport. Oh, go to Brookes. You know, that had already started to happen. And it isn't just Formula One. I think it's really important to realize that Formula One is the pinnacle, sure, of a quite large pyramid. Actually, most people who go into motorsport work in something else. But in our country, there are thousands of companies that are involved in that high quality, producing things that go into Formula One cars. I had a student just the other day, he was talking to me and he said, I was so pleased I went to X-Track I'd never really realized this. You don't have to go to the teams. You can go to a company like Extract and they design beautiful, amazing bits of mechanical engineering. And I'm so happy to be involved in that. It was, I don't know how to describe it really. It just really took on a life.
Having said that, if you're head of department, you see things like I was sweating so hard to get the university to allow us to appoint 3 more staff. And we did at this moment, and boy, were we lucky. We appointed Howard Ash, who'd been the lead of Formula students at Leeds for probably 6 or 7 years after he'd done his PhD. We know Howard, he's now actually at Hertfordshire, sadly, and Jeff Goddard, who we appointed, and Nick Bowler, who many of you know as well.
Well, yes, with Jeff Goddard, I was sitting in my office and these adverts are out and the phone went and it said, hello, my name's Jeff Goddard. And I began talking to him. So I said, oh, you're the Jeff Goddard, you mean? And he was somebody who had designed Grand Prix winning engines. He had worked a long, very successful career in motorsport. He told me on the phone that he'd taken 100, I think it was 115 international return flights the previous year. And he'd had enough. I mean, for those of you who are young, this may be hard to believe, but there can come a point when you think, actually, do you know what? I've had enough of racing. when you get into your, well, I don't know how old Jeff was at the time, but he had a long career behind him.
He did.
And he wanted to give something back. He wanted to make something good with his own experience. And this is somebody who could walk into any university and lecture anywhere that he wanted in the UK, but he didn't go anywhere. He came here. And it was fantastic. I remember saying, well, he said, yeah, it's really good. I've heard about your former students. It's good. I think I could do a lot for you. And I said, Jeff, do you know how much you're going to earn? And he said, well, yeah, I'll be taking a pay cut. And it's factor of 10 we were talking about. But yes, he came. That's the sort of place that we had become. People like these wanted to come and work for us.
It was amazing. It was amazing. And by then I'd become dean of the School of Technology as well. And here we go. Here's another exciting year in terms of Formula student.
Well, I don't know what you want me to say about that one, really. I mean, the team got better and better. We were the top UK team. We started racing in America as well as the UK. We're the only team to do that. If you want to hear about the accolades that the team have won, then go online because it's just fantastic. The team has won more than any other team in the UK, and it goes on to do really, really well. And America, I mean, it was a lovely experience. It was fantastic. Racing with North America as well as the UK. A brilliance.
It was
brilliant time.
It was. But then by that, I can't remember the exact date when this happened. We started a BEng and in motorsport engineering. John might remember, but I'm not sure. But in 2005, we then validated an MSc in motorsport engineering and an MEng. And John Duradola and Douglas, is Douglas still with us? Yeah, they put an enormous amount of work into.
There's a good bit on that though. When it says there, we set a new world record for the skid pad. And
there we go.
Brilliant. We were in America when we did it, and so the skid pad. For those of you who don't know, you have to take your car and you go around a circle one way, then you go around a circle the other way, and you do it just as fast as you can. And it measures the lateral acceleration that the car can produce.
Yeah.
And getting over 1G is pretty amazing. Anyway, I woke up in Detroit after the event, and Detroit is car town basically. So everything that happens in Detroit is about the cars, and we're on the national press there, and it said UK team comes to America to show them how it's done. They break the world record for lateral acceleration, 14.1 G. It says, well, we're good, but we're not that good. So to put it in perspective, 14.1 G is about what you would get if you were in a Eurofighter Typhoon in a supersonic dive and you pull the stick hard back at the time. That's the sort of thing. Anyway, the decimal point was in the wrong place. But it sounds pretty good actually. Yeah, my car, 14.1 G.
It was interesting as well, though. We had, by then, I think we'd had 2 accreditation visits from the Institution of Mechanical Engineers. And what I didn't say is we were coming up to become a university and stop being Oxford Polytechnic. The people who look after chartered engineer registration had come up with this marvelous SARTOR thing. And the idea really behind SARTOR, once you worked with these people, was that they wanted to stop the polytechnics having accreditation for their courses. They wanted them to be the lower class, the B universities. And the pre-1992 universities really wanted this. I got involved with accreditation because I wanted to stop that. I didn't want that to happen to Oxford Polytechnic. I wanted us to be. And when we had particularly the accreditation visit in this year, it was just an amazing experience. They said the quality of your students is just like going to a Russell Group university. However, when we talk to them, they're even better. They are just amazing. It was just a delight. We'd done the thing that we were the place to go to, which was fantastic. So 2007, new buildings. We do new buildings rather well.
All the time. All the
time. We're always doing new buildings. So here we are in our new building. Slightly different price tag, though, you've noticed. Slightly different. So the building actually cost 8 million. By the time they'd put back in the things they took out in order to save costs, it probably cost more like 9.5 million, but it was that sort of thing. And at the time, I'd been working really hard with a chap who's no longer, sadly, passed away a couple of years ago, Mike Meacham. We'd been working with the South East of England Development Agency to win some funding because they really wanted to support the motorsport industry, and they agreed to give us 1.3 million in funding. I really love these photographs. So it was just, I just loved the building when we first went there. It was just something. New buildings, they really do it. But boy, they drive you mad as well, as we know. But we had 1.3 million of funding, and
we
James,
did.
you reminded me of an interesting story.
It was an interesting story, right? I was sitting peacefully in my office one day, and the phone went, and it was somebody that we'd worked with from CEDA, and they said, "I've got good news and I've got bad news for you." So I said, "Oh, okay. Well, I'm an optimistic generally sort of person, so let's start with the good news." So, and they said, "Well, I've got £500,000." And you can have it. It's the end of the year, and if we don't spend this money, then it's going to go back to central government, and I can tip it your way. So I said, "Oh, well, that sounds pretty good. What's the bad news then?" He said, well, the bad news is you've got to spend it in 3 weeks. So, not a problem. Actually, it was a bit of a problem because one thing that Denise and I had really wanted to buy, you know how when you're a kid, you have that list of things that you really want to have, and you haven't got enough pocket money, and then you say you can't have it. The thing that we really wanted was a 4-post test rig. So as soon as I heard this, I was going, ding, 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 we buy a 4-post test rig, but there's a problem. You see, at that time, if you want to buy anything worth more than 125,000 quid, you have to put it on a website in Brussels and leave it there for 8 weeks so that everybody in the EU can have a quick look at it and decide whether they want to bid. Well, that's 8 weeks. We've got 3. So we didn't buy a 4-post test rig. No. We bought 4 1-post test rigs, each of which cost less. And then we linked them all up together. Is anybody here from the tax office, by the way? This was quite a long time ago. Perhaps we'll be all right.
Yeah, I think we're all right. I think we're all right.
We'll be right. Anyway, there are other stories like that, but that's what we had. I mean, imagine it. You take 2 vehicle dynamicists and say, "Would you like a 4-post test rig?" Yeah, but the other thing, but underneath that, why did the phone go for Brookes? They didn't go anywhere else with that money.
Absolutely. And that 2 million, it ended up being £2 million of capital funding. That was the largest amount of capital funding that ever come into this university. research grants, whatever. So Mike Meakin and I won that largest amount of capital funding, which was pretty good. And not surprisingly, the university said, "Oh, we'll use some of that to pay for the building." But there you go, it's how it goes. So it was an interesting year as well, because in February, John, we had a phone call, didn't we? From the sponsors of, it was Cadastre Bank, the sponsors of Fernando Alonso. And they had decided that they wanted to sponsor 12 Spanish-speaking students to study our MSc in motorsport or our MSc in racing engine design. And you probably recognize at least one of the people there. I went to Madrid to sign the agreement with Alonso, which was an amazing experience. At that time, he was world champion. He'd been world champion for 2 years on a row. I mean, and you know what the Spanish are like. And I was in this relatively small room in Madrid, and it was like being with the paparazzi. The flashes were going. They just loved this golden boy. He's 25 at the time. It was just amazing. And he was also very, very gracious. And he said, this was something he wanted for Spain. This is the most prestigious university offering expert. This really was, I mean, for me, this was kind of the pinnacle. It was just, I mean, I thought the university would turn this down, actually, because it wasn't coming with, they do full economic costing or something ridiculous on it and say, oh no, but reputationally it was. We've had so many wonderful Spanish speaking students since because of this. It has been just an amazing thing that happened to us. The other thing to say is as well, and James and I often use this at visit day, open days, when we talked about the course, is we had 1 or 2 really exceptional placement students. And the one that we often talk about is this young man, Gavin Ward, who came from Toronto in Canada. And during his placement year with Red Bull, they saw how good he was, and he was straight on. After 6 months, he was on the race team working for David Coulthard and Webber, and he then went on. They told him, don't go back to Brookes, stay with us. But he did come back to us, which was amazing. And he also went and raised the constructors trophy on the podium in 2013, and this is the quote that Gavin would say: best place to go, Oxford, Brookes, which was also absolutely fantastic. So I mean,
he had another string to his bow as well. He was quite quick in the Formula Student car as well.
Yes, he was also a very good basketball player.
He was,
yes, as I remember. So things were going quite well. However, so James, there's this NSS thing, National Student Survey, coming round. Hey, tell me what you're thinking about all of this.
Right. Yes, these are national surveys. They're designed to produce league tables. And in my view, the approach taken is an abomination. It is an absolute abomination. It is designed to produce mediocrity and dullness. It's a whole apparatus just designed to bring a good course pain. That's what it is. They ask students, they say, are you satisfied? What student is it that's going to say, yeah, I can't think of a single thing of way my course can be improved? We recruit some of the most able, gifted, talented engineers from all around the world. Of course, they can think of better ways to do things. Nothing is ever going to be good enough for them. If they win a Grand Prix, they want to win another one. Yeah. It's not, they're never going to say, in this system of judgment, It is never going to work that courses like us that do what they're supposed to do come off well. No, 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 no. You need to think about accreditation, and you're the boss. You need to be guided by that. That's the standard. For those of you who maybe don't know about it, accreditation involves a panel, maybe 12 senior engineers from the Institute of Mechanical Engineers. They come to this place. They come for 3 days, and they go through everything. All your staff, all your students. They go into the lectures. They go into the workshops. They visit the placements. They look at the exams. They go to the library, and they don't just count the books. They look at how often they get taken out. They do everything. At the end of 3 days, they lock you into a room, and the chairman delivers his or her verdict, and they say whether you can or can't graduate chartered engineers. And it is a knife-edge moment if you're running an accredited degree like we are, because if you lose that license, you lose everything. You lose all of that respect. And it comes, they say all these things that you have to do. And the reason it's such a worry when you go into it is they're going to make conditions. They call them conditions. You have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this. And then there are recommendations. You really ought to do this. And really, when they say they're recommendations, they're not really recommendations. Because if you come along, they come along next time and you haven't done the recommendations, then you're in trouble. So it is a weighty moment when you go into it. You tell them, what did they say? The last time the accreditation panel came to visit us and they inspected us, what did they say at the end when they fed back to us?
What they said was change nothing. This is really...
That is what you must remember to do. Now, I think you're right. There are storms coming. And
Storms coming.
But you and I both know that what we do is quality, and we have to hang on to that and hold on tight. And the accreditation visit is what you need to be guided by. There is going to be those blown off course by this temporary wind will have egg on their face later, because at the end of the day, it's the same thing that makes this course so good, is the great students who work so hard as they go through a brilliant program and then go on to work. And if we ever lose that, we shall lose what we depend on. So we have to navigate somehow these difficult times, but
as we did.
That's what we need to do, as we did.
As we did. And the world was about to go mad, but there you go. It really was. But we're kind of about to almost wind up, but I want to sort of finish off really by telling you a little bit about where we've got to and why this makes a difference, and think a bit about the future as well. James used to use this one. I wasn't doing open days and visit days by now, but James used to use this particular slide. This is Lotus Renault F1 team, and they'd employed 33 graduates in the last 3 years, which is a significant.
The reason Denise says that I used to use that in open days is it was pointed out to me by somebody who was an applicant from another university, that this university that they had visited told them that they were really good because they had somebody who went to work in Formula One. So I whipped up that slide. And when we took the picture, actually, I was there with Jeff Goddard, and we did a whistle on the tannoy for anybody who came from Brookes to come down, and this lot came down. 33 in the last 3 years at that time.
Yeah, fantastic. And in fact, Gordana, who now manages the shop very, very well, had been not quite scraping, but analysing the data that's on LinkedIn. And the one on the right shows the number of Brookes graduates in each of these Formula One teams. But the one on the left is the one that I'm probably most proud of and is most interesting. The number of Brookes graduates and Formula One is the pinnacle. It's only the pinnacle, though. There is so much more beneath that. 295 Brookes graduates. The next university down is Loughborough, 136. My own university, Cambridge, they've all gone off to join finance. That's the problem, isn't it?
I don't think
What a mistake I made.
Birmingham's on there, is it?
No, Birmingham didn't even get on there, James, I'm afraid. Yeah, 26 from Cambridge. I think that's a fantastic statistic. It says so much about my colleague Mike Meakin did a big piece of work around knowledge exchange and how we can work with the motorsport industry. And he interviewed a number of engineering directors from motorsport teams that we'd been working with. And he said to them, what could Brookes do to really improve your competitiveness? And the chap he was interviewing said, if I'm honest with you, it couldn't actually do anything except if you can give me another 3 of those graduates, just like the ones you gave me last year, he said, that will make a difference. Now, in some ways, I might think that research career, I didn't quite push quite so hard on, you know, the research papers you and I didn't quite manage.
We didn't do all that.
We didn't do all that. We did quite a lot of that,
We did,
actually,
yeah.
but anyhow,
We
but
did some of that.
but this was what we did, and we believe that made a difference. Gordana and I did some little calculations. We're not sure how entirely good they are. It's quite difficult to go back, but we reckon that from 1999, which is when we had our first graduates, to last year, we produced 1,450 undergraduates, 1,650 postgraduates. That's 2,700 people's lives that we've made a real difference to. And the bottom one was one that I always aspired to. But I went to Cambridge, and many of the people who I studied with, and I'm sure it was the same at Birmingham, did go off to have very successful careers in finance. Not sure they enjoyed it, but they did go off and do. And the thing that I always wanted was for us to be somewhere that people came and they wanted to stay in engineering because they loved it. And they actually, when I did accreditation visits with the IMechE, they were very clear that there were 2 universities who were really good in terms of that statistic, Oxford Brookes and Loughborough.
But that's what we wanted. A degree, come to a degree, learn the things that you want to do to what you want to do afterwards. It's not rocket science, really, is it, when you think about it? But yes, we did that.
Okay. So we're going to thank you to so many people. We have to say, we've stood up here and we've said it was James and I. It was not James and I who did this. It was not us at all. Anybody who has contributed in any way to this, part of an OBR team, part of a member of staff, anybody at all, put their hands up. People who might have contributed. There's Douglas admits it. Come on, so many of you have contributed to this amazing, we think it's an amazing story. We're a bit biased, we admit it, we're a bit biased, but and you know, for everybody who has, it was an amazing time. The future is interesting, though. I think the future is our new buildings. You've got the opportunity to see these. We're now. Formula Student is electric. I run the Centre for Batteries, Electric Vehicles and Electronics. And amazingly, we have not one Formula Student team, but we have 2 Formula Student teams. Andy Bradley runs, for his sins, our autonomous team, who have come second for a significant number of years, and really exciting work that they are doing. The challenge, I think, for the future is how we keep ahead of everybody else, because this is an interesting, we've got the competitive advantage, we've been ahead in terms of the race, but it's not entirely clear strategically quite how we do maintain the lead that we have. James, anything you'd like to say about the future?
Well, I mean, the future, that's your next race, you see. How are you going to win your next race? Well, they're just as hard as all of the other ones. I don't know. I mean, I can say that there are things, but those are the obvious things. the electric cars,
They
the
are obvious. Yeah.
all the new materials. It's a
tricky.
lovely time. I mean, this is a great time to be involved with motorsport and doing all of this because there's so much happening.
Yeah,
But yes, definitely.
it's tricky. It's tricky. So there we are. And we had last year, we had, thanks to Prescott and all the team, we had an amazing launch, which actually James and I both came to, which is 25 years of OBR, all those cones down the bottom there, which was just amazing.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's maybe a good spot for me because I remember going there. And I'm retired, and I was retired at the time that I went there. And it's one of those things, you know, when you look back on everything that we'd done, what do you have any particular moments that stand out? And that was one actually, because I went down, I saw the car, and it was absolutely amazing. What the former student team were doing was literally incredible. And afterwards, it was fantastic because we could all go down and start talking to the students. And I started to talk to students on the team, and I was talking to one of them was a first-year student, and she seemed to be involved in vehicle dynamics. And I asked her what she was doing, and she said that she was going to be measuring pioneering an inline slip measurement at the front of the car to marry into the vehicle dynamics simulation. She was doing a couple of other electronics projects and some design, and this is all a first-year student. And I thought, I mean, these really, when we started doing this sort of thing, that was the kind of project that a vehicle dynamics student 2 years after finishing a master's would be thinking about doing. And this was a student who was doing it in her first year. And I was thinking about the experience that student was going to get, the practical experience that they would have on the courses that we'd started. And I realized that there was something that she wasn't going to do. She would not be filing a pair of pliers out of a piece of steel. No. Result.
We got there. So we're going to stop now. You'll probably be really pleased that I'm going to say that. I must just say though that we've got sponsors for our events, and I was going to acknowledge the sponsors, and they've kindly done all the refreshments. Before you go out to the refreshments, if anybody's got any questions. Then we can, but James and I are going to be here anyhow, but I don't know, I mean, would anybody like to ask us any questions? You don't have to, don't feel that you have to.
Yeah. Well, yes.
Do you love the pliers?
That's what I'm implied. You know what? I do. If you spent 2 weeks finding a set of pliers, then you would still have them. And do you know what? The person that ran it was, I mean, obvious. Who would you employ to do that? So he was basically a sadist. And when you come to shut the pliers like this, if you can see daylight through it because you filed an incy-wincy little bit too far, which is kind of easy to do, he made you do it all over again. So yes, they're not very good actually.
No, it was often EA1 sorts of things. Yeah. Great.
Okay. Thank you.